Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Music of the Week. I did say I'd get this done 4 days! 4 videos in 4 days! My god, I did debate doing this one today, but for one thing I already promised I would do it yesterday when I did the part 2 of Pairwolf backtracking episode, and also I sort of lost a coin toss against myself, so here I am, got 5 albums to go through, let's just try and get through them. Started in Naugatuck, Connecticut for a while away with their third album, Stew. Now, these guys have only released one album every 5 years, they've been around since 2011, which is not the longest amount of time, but it's long enough. They dropped a whole bunch of EPs though in the time between, but I was really looking forward to this one. I caught the single Karma from this album, and I've been listening to that pretty much non-stop. Spit and Checklist is another great single, and honestly just really solid, like emo-leaning alternative punk rock. Giving it an A. I like this a lot more than I was anticipating. I mean, I am a big sucker for like that style of emo in particular, like that sort of Midwest vibe to it. And this album really has that. I love how the production makes the instrumental work feel really like super realistic and raw. It doesn't really feel super processed. You know, it's got a really nice fuzzy tone, sort of like Weather State's album did. And, yeah, Never Better, that was the name of it. Yeah, remembered. But yeah, really solid stuff from everyone. The lead singer does a really great job. Pretty much everyone does. This is also their first album with a new guitarist named Manuel Fonseca, and he's probably the standout for me. Really solid solos from the dude. And that's the thing as well. Solos on a modern day emo-leaning punk album. You don't get it a lot. I loved a lot of the lyrics as well, going over some very relatable subjects. Probably some of the most relatable stuff I've heard, probably all year, maybe? So yeah, absolutely earns its grade. I think this album is really good. Next we go to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania for Big Nothing and their second album, Dog Hours. This follows their debut titled Chris, which came out back in 2019. It's my first album by Big Nothing, and there are sort of like conflicting sources. I think there might be another band with the same name that formed way back in 1989, because if this is the same band that formed in 1989 and only dropped their debut 30 years later, that's kind of strange to me. And I looked, there's really not a lot of EPs either. There's one live album as well, but that doesn't really count for much. Speaking of this one though, speaking of Dog Hours, wasn't super the biggest fan of this. I want to get into it. It's very sort of like mellowed out feeling indie rock sort of stuff. I'm giving it a C+, and the main reason is it does have a lot of good stuff going for it, but the problem is it's got 10 songs, and the album's length is only 27 minutes. Like, it is it's almost insultingly short in that way. Like, a lot of the songs barely even reach 3 minutes, and some of them even barely reach 2.5. It's just a very confusingly put together album. It's like, yeah, let's just do this, keep it short and simple, then move on. Like, no, it's not a fast-paced punk rock album. This is an album with a genre that should try and stretch it out a bit more and try and find fun ways to do it. And the album doesn't really do that, which is a shame because there's some pretty decent lyrical content. I like some of the instrumental work. I like how it's a bit more sort of acoustic tinged in all of its places, and some good piano bits too. The production isn't horrible, and the performances are pretty solid, but the length really damages this one for me. I don't know, I couldn't really get into it. I wanted to. It is an album that does shoot itself in the foot with just how short it is. I would recommend giving it a spin because it's not going to take up a lot of your time, but yeah, there needed to be like, maybe a couple more songs to make it last a bit more past half an hour, but I don't know, it felt very shortly done. Considering it was their first one in 3 years as well, I really expected more, and it was my first album from them, so I am giving them the credit of the benefit of the doubt, but I don't think that'll last long here. Next we go from a band who hasn't been around for super long to a band that's been around for a while, The Birthday Massacre, who first formed in 1999. They're from London, Ontario, Canada, and this is their 9th album, Fascination. Now, these are a band I'd known about for, I want to say maybe 3 or 4 years. I didn't really get into them because I wasn't as into like that particular brand of like new wave gothic punk stuff as I am today. Although I have to say, really glad I got into them. This album gets a B+. I really loved a lot of the elements to this, you know. Really loved a lot of the storytelling. One fewer song, by the way, than Big Nothing's album, stretched out to 10 minutes longer and actually like feeling like it earns that. Loved a lot of the performances as well, like Sarah Chibi Taylor. She's a really great vocalist for this style. I love a lot of the keyboard work. It does feel very keyboard heavy at times, and often, I don't know, I think my main issue is the fact that the guitarists feel a bit basic in comparison, but If that is the case, I'm fine with it, because the keyboard and programming work are absolutely phenomenal. I love the lyrical storytelling of like using metaphors and like dark fantasy story to try and present a very realistic issue, and it does work for them. It's a really competent story, it's really well told. The band are great, and I can only make the assumption, because this is they've been on Metropolis Records for such a long time now, pretty much since they first formed, and they do all their own production. So it's really good that they're still doing that, and this album is absolutely phenomenal. I really should maybe check out their old stuff, because they've had a pretty consistent output from what I can see. And again, this isn't a genre I typically go after, but I just added this one because I thought, it might be good, and I was correct. So yeah, definitely worth a spin, I think. Next we go to Houston, Texas for Foster Mother and their second album, The Ocean, following up their self-titled debut, which came out back in 2020. These are a band that haven't been around long, but from what little bits I was able to pick up from my Googling, they did, well, the members were in like some other bands before this. This is the brainchild of someone named Travis Weatherhead, and a very sort of like psychedelic leaning doom metal act. I liked a lot of the album though. I will give it a B. Part of the reason I'm giving it a B is because it does suffer from a lot of the same issues that I find common with doom metal, and to be honest, like, half the songs, well, a lot of the songs really feel like the instrumental takes over a lot of the lyricism, which is a shame, because I'm sure there's an interesting story somewhere. I just couldn't really find any lyrics, which is sort of easy to understand because there doesn't really seem to be a lot on the album. I don't really know how else to describe it. I mean, yeah, okay, the lyrics are a little bit lacking, but the riffs are still really good, even if they do drag slightly. The production is phenomenal, and I like how dense the songwriting feels with the riffs, but I don't know. Like, it does sort of damage how the pacing is as well, because, again, I really wanted there to be a lot more than what we got, and it feels a little bit stretched thin, which probably means I should probably give this album like a B- or a C+ or something, but I gave it a B because the riffs are just really fucking good, and the production is amazing. It saves so much of the album. So, again, another album I'd recommend listening to. We cap off with, somewhat fittingly, with the debut, Melbourne, Australia's Rot TV, with their debut album, Tales of Torment. Now, this is another one I just added, because I just thought, what'll be the harm in it? It might be a lot of fun. And I knew nothing about them going in. Again, they could have been, from what I was able to see, they were able to form this band from like other bands in the Melbourne, Australia music scene. And this might be another contender for my favourites of the year, giving it an A+ across all boards. Love the mix of hard rock and punk rock. Love how the riffs feel. There's so many good solos. Lead vocalist Harriet Hudson is really, really great on the vocals, but to me, like, it's the guitarist Graham Childs? It's Graham, I know that much. Childs? Let's just go with Graham. Yeah, but he's a really solid guitarist as well. The band is entirely just fucking great. I love how raw the production feels as well. It just feels like everyone's having a fun time with it. If they did do it themselves, and I really hope they did. But honestly, yeah, this is just a really fun punk hard rock album. It's got its like political content as well, but it's also very fun in terms of its like lyricism, and it's again one of those albums which I like to describe as, if we're going to watch the world burn, let's just have a beer and have a party while we're doing it, you know? And if that's the vibe that they were meant to put out, then I would look forward to going to the next party, because this absolutely impressed me. One of my favourite debuts so far in 2022, and I've heard a fair good few. This is easily my favourite so far of the year. So yeah, I would highly recommend seeking this one out for yourself. Really great production, structuring, performances, everything is just fucking awesome. So that'll about do it. That is another episode done and dusted. I don't really have a lot to promote, but tomorrow night, Reverence, going to be streaming that. That's the next pay-per-view. Saturday night, likely going to be streaming more Bulletstorm. And then Sunday, possibly another episode of another Fight of the Night review, if there is one to review. Also, while I remember this time, my most recommended music. So I would say maybe give all of these a spin, including Dog Hours by Big Nothing. I mean, it is, again, it's short, it won't take up a lot of your time. But the albums I'd recommend the most definitely are Stew by Will Away and I don't really have many plans beyond that. I'm going to start working on the Baby Metal episode next week. That really won't take me long. So yeah, I'll see you all for that. And as always, thank you for watching. You're awesome. Bye-bye.